The following program is made possible by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
Term limits forced her out of office, but she's not slowing down.
Fiona Ma is here to talk politics, transit, and higher office. The game is politics, and the game is on.
I'm Nicholas Calderon.
And I'm Mark Simon.
Term limits forced Fiona Ma to leave State Assembly last year after compiling an impressive record as a leading advocate for high-speed rail, for victims of domestic violence, and for safer baby products, among many other things.
Before going to the Assembly, she was on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, and now she's running in the 2014 election for the State Board of Equalization district, representing very roughly Northern California. Welcome back to the game, Fiona. Thanks for being here. Tell us why you're running for the Board of Equalization and why you're running now. It's a long time till 2014.
Well, I'll tell you, it's making my parents very happy. I am a CPA by training. I have 3 degrees and a CPA license. My parents didn't really understand why I was running for the Board of Supervisors. They didn't understand why I was running for the State Assembly. But now, because it's a tax board, I think they're very happy. My dad actually sits people down and tells them what this board does. So it's there's peace in the household. This is what I do. The board was founded in the 1800s to equalize all of the assessors in California, because not all of them were collecting and remitting the taxes. Since then, they collect about 25 miscellaneous taxes and especially the sales tax. So the board roughly collects about 35% of the state's revenues. So it is very important that this board does the best that they can so that we can fund the programs and services that everybody wants.
It's a tax policy board. With your CPA background, you didn't spend a lot of time on tax policy in the Assembly. You focused on more domestic issues, ones you were clearly passionate about and some of which you had a significant impact on, but you're not known for delving into the intricacies of tax policy. Not that you couldn't, but it wasn't where you were going first. So why is this suddenly so intriguing to you?
Yeah, well, I did sit on the Revenue and Taxation Committee, and on that committee, I actually staffed myself because my staff, it would take too long for them to understand the tax policies. So my tax experience and qualifications did help me. I also sat on the Assessment Appeals Board way back when, and understanding how we assess property taxes, what happens when there's a downturn, and how the assessors actually think and work is also helping me in this job.
Mm-hmm. But what's the appeal of being on the Board of Equalization? What is it you can't wait to do on the Board of Equalization?
Well, I think because I understand taxes, it's about equalizing, it's about being fair, it's about understanding what the issues are without having to, do that much work. People are calling me about 1031 exchanges. They're calling me about very specific taxes related to the auto recycling industry. So it's interesting, it's fascinating. I thought it was going to be boring, but it's actually all-encompassing. I'm learning a lot, and I look forwad to just representing taxpayers.
Mm-hmm. So, Mark hit on it in the opening. The district is pretty much all of Northern California. Tell us a little bit about that district.
Yeah, so there's 4 elected tax board members. It's the only elected tax board in the country. So the district represent about 10 million people. Mm-hmm. So this seat goes from the Oregon border, kind of west of I-5, all the way, including the Bay Area, down the peninsula, and including the Santa Barbara County. So it's 23 counties in all. I spend a lot of time in my car. I bought my parents' old 2003 Mini Cooper. It's great for parking, it's great on mileage, and I'm just going to drive the hell out of it for the next year.
Let's talk a little bit about something that you were known for in the Assembly, which is your passion for high-speed rail.
Yes.
The project is moving. There are a lot of lawsuits that are still fighting it. The Central Valley project is in the planning phase. On the peninsula, and I have to disclose I work for Caltrain. I have a conflict of interest that at least I've disclosed, which is that we're using high-speed rail funds to modernize Caltrain and also prepare the way for high-speed rail. Tell us why you think it's so important that the state do something that a lot of people are very upset that the state is doing.
Yeah, so when I got elected in 2006, I made it my duty to try to keep the high-speed rail initiative on the ballot. It had been postponed twice, and we really are trying to build this great Trans-Bay terminal and waiting to see whether high-speed rail gets passed. So spent 2 years, fought the governor at the time. He wanted to cut the budget. He wanted to postpone the bond. He wanted to change the bond language. We finally got it on the ballots, helped get it helped pass the initiative, and I want to just give a shout out to the young people. I went to all the college campuses on the potential route, and the young people didn't say, can we afford it? How long is it going to take? They just said, why don't we have it now? We'd like to go to San Francisco or LA for the weekend or to see my family. So the young people came out in droves. We passed the initiative 53% at the height of the Great Recession, November 2008. So the people want it. I think we're on the right track. Finally, I spoke to Dan Richard. He's chair of the High-Speed Rail Authority. He's doing a great job in terms of bringing people together, working with different communities. 3 out of the 4 lawsuits have been settled, so there's only 1 left. We got a great report from the GAO's office saying that their numbers are reasonable. They are putting new experienced, qualified people on the High-Speed Rail Authority, and it is moving forward, so I'm very, very happy about that.
You say the people want it, and on the other hand, people want to eat ice cream and lose weight. That's not necessarily a good reason to do something. Why, I understand young people want it. Most of them probably don't think they're paying for it. Tell me why you think it's, because you've been a proponent for this almost from the beginning.
Yeah.
Why is high-speed rail specifically important to California and important to you?
Well, I think everyone knows that the population is going to continue to increase. Down in Los Angeles, they have 6-lane highways, and it is still congested. Right here in the Bay Area, getting up and down the peninsula, depending on the time of day, is difficult. Going to Sacramento, all around. So I think people understand that we need an alternative transportation system. It's dependable, it's reliable, it's affordable in most cases, and people need to get to and from.
Ticket price.
Ticket price,
yeah.
Right. Ticket price. So, like, if I can go to Sacramento, it's what, $19 to go to Sacramento. Mm-hmm. I sit on the train for an hour and a half. I don't have to worry about traffic or get my work done. I mean, I think that is definitely the future. If we could take trains, I think we would all be taking trains, commuting down to Los Angeles, commuting wherever we need to go to. And I think it's good for the environment. It creates jobs. The rest of the world is building high-speed rail. China, by 2020, I think, is going to build 31,000 miles, tracks of high-speed rail. People are understanding that we cannot continue getting in our cars, sitting in traffic, continuing to pollute our environment. Oil prices are going to continue to increase, so we need to do something.
Go ahead.
There are a lot of people here on the peninsula who are concerned about high-speed rail, live real close to the tracks. How would you ease their concerns? Their homes are going to be affected. The streets they drive are going to be directly affected. How would you ease those people's concerns?
Well, I think part of the bond that we passed was including funding for Caltrain electrification, for example, to help the different communities improve their systems. So I think we've been working with Caltrans, or high-speed rail has been doing better outreach. They've come out with a compromise plan instead of, overpass, underpass, and now we're going to do some sort of like combined usage with some sort of, detour to keep the train moving. So I think it is working. People want to have a say. They want less disruptions, and high-speed rail, I think they understand. If you can get on a train from San Francisco to downtown LA in 4.5 hours, is it 4.5?
Yep.
Then
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
2.5. Okay, 2.5. It's been a while since I've been talking about it. So 2.5 hours. I mean, wouldn't you want to do that instead of driving?
Let me stop you there. We're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's been over 150 years since Wells Fargo first opened for business. Since then, we've enjoyed your community support, and we're passionate about returning it. Every day, Wells Fargo team members roll up their sleeves and donate their time to organizations and charitable groups throughout the Bay Area. Nationally, we've committed even more. In just the past 2 years alone, we've donated over $70 million to support schools and educational programs. It's a commitment we're proud of. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
Welcome back to the game. I'm Mark Simon. He's Nicholas Calderon. And over here we have former Assemblywoman Fiona Ma, candidate for the State Board of Equalization. But we're talking about high-speed rail, one of your passions. We were talking about before we took the break. The latest polls show that if people had a chance to vote for it on it again, they'd vote against it in a majority about the size of the majority that opposed it or that supported it back when it was on the ballot. Do you think that just is what happens when these big projects come forward, that it makes people uncomfortable, that things about them make them unhappy?
Well, I think, yes. Big infrastructure projects are unknown. They do tend to cost money. The longer we postpone it, it increases the construction costs, and then you have the naysayers who don't want it and who kind of pile on. And I don't think the High-Speed Rail Authority in the past has done a good job in being proactive. They didn't work with the communities close enough. They didn't bring in their allies and allay all the fears in terms of cost. But now the GAO just produced a report kind of giving them the green light, saying their numbers are reasonable, their estimates, because that was also a concern. I think they've been settling the lawsuits because now the cities and the counties are now working and understanding what the plan is. The High-Speed Rail Authority is doing a better job. Dan Richard, leading the authority, also has experience working in government, but also is political. And so he gets and understands what it takes to bring such a big project to fruition.
Mm-hmm. You're also doing some consulting work for the Trans-Bay Terminal. If you don't get high-speed rail there, that project has a whole different sort of cast about it, doesn't it? I mean, it's kind of critical that it get high-speed rail there, isn't it?
Well, yes. They are building a train box for the high-speed rail because we want the high-speed rail to come all the way to the Trans-Bay station. Mm-hmm. What's exciting about Trans-Bay is it is going to connect 11 different transit agencies right in that building. So it is going to be the Grand Central Station of the West. It is going to be the transit hub where now it's a one-stop shop. If you want to get on a train, a bus, high-speed rail, people can just go to one place instead of having to go to different places, catching connections and waiting. And that's the beauty of the Trans-Bay Terminal. So I'm looking forward to it. The bus portion is going to open in 2013, just in time, hopefully, to see the Warriors come into town. And that should allay congestion concerns as well, having that transportation hub right there.
San Francisco is really undergoing, in many ways, kind of a renaissance, isn't it? I mean, if you look at what happened around the ballpark, the south of Market area, the China Basin area, the Grand Central Station, the Trans-Bay Terminal is also south of Market, but it's an area that wasn't, I don't know if I'd describe it as blighted, but it was really not a very well-to-do area. This will transform that. Give us your vision for what's happening to San Francisco.
Well, I think it's a good thing for San Francisco and the Bay Area. Property prices, values keep increasing. Companies are coming now to mid-market. I mean, that whole area is transforming. The Mission Bay area, hopefully we get Bayview Hunters Point, the Lennar project going. So I think it is transforming. That whole neighborhood is growing. Its families are coming back. We're going to see green spaces. We're going to see hospitals, new biotech, high-tech companies here. I think, we are becoming a more well-rounded, world-class city, not just one for tourists and going to Pier 39, which is great, but it's going to have really, truly everything. 2 ballparks, a whole Mission Bay, brand new hospitals, just schools, just families coming.
Let's talk a little bit about the Asian vote, which during the last presidential campaign, a lot of attention was paid to the Latino vote. Mm-hmm. But what we've been seeing quietly throughout the Bay Area, on the peninsula, maybe throughout California, is a rising number of Asian Pacific elected officials and a rising voting bloc And first of all, is that a fair description? Do you think that the Asian community is beginning to assert itself politically?
Oh, absolutely. 10 years ago when I was on the Board of Supervisors, I was the only Asian on the Board of Supervisors, very few Asian elected officials. And now we have 5 members of the board. We've got Asians on every single elected body, school board, community college, DCCC. So I think it's, and the mayor.
Yeah.
And the mayor, Mary Jung is chair of the Democratic Party. We've got the public defender. So we are just really understanding that the community should get empowered, can get empowered, and can start electing Asians if they register to vote and come out to vote. And coming out to vote was a problem 10 years ago. People were busy, they didn't understand it, they were intimidated by the whole process. Absentee ballots obviously help. The fact that people don't actually have to go down to, to an actual polling site is helping. And I think they understand the issues better because we have at least three different Chinese media outlets. We have a couple TV stations. We've got a number of radio stations that are, letting the public know what the issues are, when the elections are, who's running, where they stand. And it's amazing because the Asian community actually understands and knows the candidates and what they stand for. The last mayoral race, I was very shocked that they could tell me who they liked, why they liked him, why they didn't like someone, and very specific issues.
Mm-hmm. So there's a growing sophistication that comes with involvement. Is that pretty much it?
Absolutely.
Or is it also economic involvement? Is there more of a stake in the game because 10 years have passed, more people have investments, more people have businesses?
Oh, yeah. That is also part of it, right? People are becoming homeowners. They want good schools for their kids. They are doing business here, and so they want to be able to succeed in their businesses. So it's all of that because they understand that they've got a stake in the game now.
We're going to take another break. Stick around. We're going to talk about this some more. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's been over 150 years since Wells Fargo first opened for business. Since then, we've enjoyed your community support, and we're passionate about returning it. Every day, Wells Fargo team members roll up their sleeves and donate their time to organizations and charitable groups throughout the Bay Area. Nationally, we've committed even more. In just the past 2 years alone, we've donated over $70 million to support schools and educational programs. It's a commitment we're proud of. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
Welcome back to the game. I'm Mark Simon. He's Nicholas Calderon, and we are joined by Fiona Ma, who has been talking a little bit about the Asian vote. Nicholas, we were talking off the air.
Yeah, so, one of the questions, before break, you were talking about how the Asian community has really risen up and is inserting itself into these political positions and is showing up in a strong way on election day and filling these seats. And so, the question I had is really, how do you see, what advice would you give for other ethnic communities like the Latino community on how to do the same thing? I know here on the Peninsula area, it's kind of a topic that people have been talking about, and it's really, nationwide, which is how do they rise up and get these positions? And so, what advice would you be able to provide for them?
Well, I think a lot of it is economics. Decades ago, the Asians were working, right, 2 or 3 jobs. They all lived together. They weren't homeowners. They weren't, involved with tech companies and startups. And now things have changed. And so I think with economic prosperity, people have a little bit more time. They have a little bit more at stake. Sophistication in terms of how laws impact their lives. And so as a Latino community kind of moves up economically, as they start getting better jobs, as we have immigration reform and they don't have to be scared about certain issues, I think they are going to, obviously be the next big voting bloc. Language is an issue, but language was an issue in the Asian community as well. And so we've managed to overcome that by having elected officials who are running, or candidates who are running, who speak those languages, right? And certainly there are a number of people that speak Spanish. So how do the elected officials here make the laws or their candidacy relevant to them, right? So immigration reform is a big deal right now. So I think that the Latino community is getting more involved. They are going to look closely at who is running and what they stand for and what they're going to be doing and holding elected officials accountable. That's really important. Right now in the Asian community, if they do not like policies or votes that Asians are making, they will either try to recall them or they will vote them out of office the next time. That never happened before. But now people are becoming more aware of their power to vote at the ballot box.
It's an interesting point, because a generation ago or less, it would have been, we've got to get one of ours in. And it didn't matter if they were a Democrat or Republican or anything. It was more about, it's somebody who looks like me.
Right.
Now, you're right. I mean, so down in San Jose, there was the whole issue over Little Saigon that resulted in a recall election. The incumbent held on, but you're right. They're not afraid to show divisions. You mentioned immigration reform, because that's interesting to me, because that is really a Latino issue. It doesn't seem to be an issue that anybody thinks about the Asian community, and yet one would assume that there are similar immigration-related issues for an ethnic community like the Asian.
Well, absolutely. I think for the Asian community, the issue is really family reunification. Whether if someone comes over, whether they can bring their family over, whether they're working here or going to school here, if they choose to. So for us, it's more of a family issue versus a temporary work visa, going back and forth between the countries. So we have a little bit of a different issue, but we are very concerned about immigration reform. Let's
talk a little bit about the legislature. You left. You were there during a time when its reputation was not good, which I'm not saying was a reflection on you, but it was just, some of it was just a public dissatisfaction and unhappiness with government at almost every level. Yeah. The reputation of the legislature has risen some since then. Especially in the past 2 years, what do you think has changed? What do you think has changed public's attitude towards the legislature? Okay, so I am out of the legislature now, so I can kind of put on another hat, right? But 2006 to 2012, we went through the Great Recession. I did not see a profitable budget year in those 6 years that I served. I think holding elected officials accountable if the budget did not pass on time was brilliant. I think Congress should do that as well. If they do not pass the budget on time, that we will withhold their salaries until they do, permanently. It has changed the dynamics up there, and I will tell you, because I went through 4 years of, prolonged budgets, going to vouchers, to all of a sudden the last 2 years just passing the budget on time, getting it to the governor's office, and let's kind of move on. So people need some sort of carrot and a stick. So I think that worked. Proposition 30 that the governor pushed helped tremendously, because now they don't have those huge budget deficits that they have to deal with. It's just very, very minor in comparison. So this class, I think, has gotten off easy. Plus, they're going to be there potentially for 12 years, which gives them a little bit more time to relax, to understand their job, to work with other people, especially their colleagues. We got up there in 6 years, we're kind of running. Every 2 years, we're running for another office. We're thinking about what we're running for next. We never took any time to stay at a dinner, to have, a meal with another colleague, to really understand whether our legislation is working or not working, maybe pushing it off to work on it for, another couple of years because of the sense of urgency. So, I wish I got elected this past term. I would have had a easier time. And you would have had a 12-year window in which to do that. It sounds like that was a pretty significant change, that you have time, and that's it. You 12 years in the Assembly, then you don't run for something else. Right. Because we've all had the experience of meeting somebody for the first time in the legislature, and all they can talk about is what they're going to run for next, and they've been in office for 3 days. So interesting, the 12-year term has also shifted people's thinking about running for the Senate. Right. So Michael Rubio resigned out in the Central Valley, and I asked my colleagues, I said, well, why didn't you run? You're in the Assembly, why wouldn't you run for the state Senate? And they said, well, what's the difference? It's 12 years, I can stay here, I don't have to move my house, I get paid the same. Why would I want to run for the Senate anymore? There's a great Democratic majority, which is also something you didn't have when you're the 2/3 majority.
Yes.
Are there some reforms you think that now they ought to take on? Should they reform the initiative process? Should they take on some of the tougher things? Should they look at reforming Prop 13?
Yes, I think the initiative process, even though we have the most aggressive and easy initiative process, anyone with $1 million can go get signatures and put something on the ballot. It doesn't have to go through any sort of legal review. It doesn't have to sit and wait. It doesn't have to go through the legislature for any sort of review. Those are the type of reforms I think we should be making. And if we're going to pass an initiative that costs money, we should find a revenue stream. The problem with the way our budget works now, if an initiative passes and it costs money, it becomes the priority. And it trumps all the other services and programs that we have been spending. So as a legislature, we have very little money, discretionary funds to allocate anymore, because every time you pass 3 strikes, 3 strikes means more people are going to jail. It means we're spending more on prisons than schools, right? So people don't understand, because when they come up and they get angry at us going, why are we spending more on prisons? I say, did you vote for 3 strikes? Did you vote for Megan's Law? Did you vote for Chelsea's Law?
I got to stop you there. I'm sorry to cut you off. We'll have you back again. We'll finish some of these thoughts. Fiona Ma, thanks for being with us. I'm Mark Simon. He's Nicholas Calderon. That's been The Game. Join us next time.